Welcome back, everyone, to the Black and Corporate Executive Coffee Chats. We have a very special guest with us today. I'm really excited for us to welcome Samira Sharif. And let me know if I'm saying it correctly.
Yes, you are fine. Samira it rhymes with Amira. Samira, you're perfectly. Thanks, Taylor, for having me.
Yes, she's the current vice president of U.S. Networks Distribution at Viacom CBS. She's a communications graduate from the New York University and a media and entertainment pro with over 20 years of industry experience, starting out with Ruff Ryders Entertainment in 1999 as a marketing manager. Super duper cool, and she already knows I'm a big fan, so excited to get into that. Samira also gives back a lot. She's a mentor, informally, I'm sure, to dozens, and also formally as a troop leader with the Girl Scouts in New Jersey, which is super admirable. So definitely someone to look up to and to walk in the footsteps behind her. So thank you so much, Samira, for all that you've done and the trail that you've left for young girls like me. I don't know if I could be called young girls, but young women.
Yes, you're young.
I'm 26 now, but yes.
Young women. Yeah, you're young. Love it. Love it.
To follow behind, but thank you so much. Cute little applause.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, in true fashion of Black and Corporate, we do an icebreaker. So I do want to, of course, bring you in the same way, go through that rite of passage for the start of our show. So we'll do 10 quick questions.
Okay, take it easy on me. Easy. Okay.
Yes, whatever comes to mind first. Okay. In terms of nails, are you one to do manicured red or self-maintained clear?
Manicured red.
Okay. Are you a pointy toe or round toe pumps?
Pointy toe. Who does round?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm pointy toe.
Okay. Red lipstick or neutral color lippy?
You right here. We doing red.
Red, yes. Okay. Slick back bun or twist out?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know these questions ahead of time, but today is the slick back bun kind of look, but I do a twist out. So.
Okay. Are you one to venture for a group meeting or one-on-ones?
That's a hard one. It depends. I can do both. I like groups. I like one-on-ones. Depends. It just depends.
Okay. Apple or Microsoft products?
Microsoft.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Morning walk or morning run?
Morning run.
Okay. Smile or straight face?
Smile.
Yes. Okay. Are you one for a team brainstorm or individual work then come together?
Team brainstorm.
Okay. And are you bigger on daily stand-ups or weekly touch points?
Weekly touch points.
Love it. Okay, that concludes our little 10 question lightning right there. Well,
how did I do? I don't know. I don't know.
Yes, no, that was great. I thank you for participating in that. It's always cool to just hear the answers, your preferences, just more about your character. Like you said today, you're really wearing your brand with the red lippy and the slick back.
Yeah, yes. That's what, if I can get it in the slick back, I'm going to put it back there. So,
okay. We love that. So as we say, you have an amazing career commercial for all the experiences that you've acquired so far, but we do want to start at the beginning, and just even before we even get to your career, just your upbringing, what were your influences coming up to even lead you to where you are today? Like what kind of inspired you to know that you can make it into the entertainment industry?
Okay, so we got to go way back. All right, so upbringing, born and bred in Newark, New Jersey. So I got to represent for the Brick City, born and bred. I went to college at NYU. I wanted to go away to college. I wanted to go to a historically Black college or university. That didn't happen. It's a long story. But that didn't happen. So I ended up staying local. Basically, NYU, I was a commuter student. So I didn't even live on campus. And I didn't want to go there. So I did everything in my power to get out of there as quickly as possible. Because again, it wasn't my first choice. I didn't want to go there. I was trying to call myself being rebellious and like hating college. So I finished early. Like I finished in about 3 years because I took the max amount of credits each semester, like 20 plus. And I didn't go to summer school. So I was just packing on. And along with that came internships because they gave me more credits. And I was like, okay, I gotta get out of this school. Like I don't want to be here. And so one of the things when I first went here, I was going to be a microbiology major. Like I called myself being a doctor. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go be a doctor, all that stuff. Started doing that. I was like, no, I don't want to be a doctor. Maybe I'll do nursing. So then I'm still in the medical field. So I was like, all right. But then I was doing anatomy and physiology classes. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Now, mind you, in my upbringing, my mom always said, oh, you should go into communications. And my dad said, you should go into communications. My dad's an attorney. My mother was in education. So I was just like, I don't even know what communications is. Like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. So I just kind of ignored that. But of course, third year in college, I switched over to what? Communications. And so it was just funny because all my friends were like, that's the dummy major. Everybody, it's like, my younger brother used to clown me because he was in engineering school. And I used to say, he's like, what classes are you taking? I was like, listening 101. He was like, what? That's like basket weaving. What kind of class is that? So anyway, I used to get clowned all through college. It was fine. But part of communications major was to get an internship. So one of my best friends from college, my only friend in college, that we're still friends now, because again, I didn't want to go there, didn't try to meet people, wasn't interested. So one friend, and we were reading back in those days, it was 17 magazines there, and they had an article for like the best summer internships. And so they had a list of all of these companies. And so we were like, okay, well, we got to find an internship. We both applied for Atlantic Records. We both got the internship. So that was my foray into entertainment. And I was actually trying to do some sports stuff at the same time. I was like, I applied for a Super Bowl internship stuff with the NFL. But again, the music one is the one that came through. So that's what I went with. So I interned at Atlantic Records for my last 2 years of college, ended up getting a job in the marketing department, but the internship was in publicity. So at that time I was working Brandy and Little Kim and Little C's. Like that was that era of the 90s. I guess what year was this? I'm dating myself. You guys gonna calculate my
golden era.
Yeah, that's what we'll say. We'll say when the R&B was like popping in the 90s and all that stuff. So I did that, got a job there. And so I liked it. It wasn't anything I looked to do. I was like, oh, I always want to be in the music industry. Like I said, I just happened to stumble upon it, enjoyed it, and kind of progressed that way. So I was there for a couple of years, became a coordinator to a manager. And then I left Atlantic Records for a publicity job at Def Jam for a hot second. And then while I was there, I had an opportunity to join Ruff Ryders. So, and that was from someone else I knew who used to work at Undias. And she kind of told someone else, hey, maybe think about Samira might be interested. So anyway, kind of like knowing people a little bit. And so I got the job at Ruff Ryders and was there for about 6 years. So when I got there, DMX, rest in peace, DMX, because we're still kind of, yes, it's so bad and tragic. But when I got there, he had already kind of jumped off with the Def Jam label. So it was when Ruff Ryders got their label with Interscope. So I was on board with the launch of Eve's career, the Ruff Ryder volumes 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 3, maybe, the Lox albums, the Styles P solo albums. So it was during that time that I was with Ruff Ryders for that 6 years. And then the industry started changing a little bit. Piracy, Napster started hitting the scene. All of the retail stores started closing down. No more Tower Records, no more FYE. Like the industry was just going through a transition. And at that point, I was like, oh man, I got to find a job. I don't know what's going to happen because a lot of people were getting laid off. There was a lot of consolidation was happening at the time. And a lot of qualified folks were all looking for the same jobs. Like everybody wanted these marketing manager jobs at the label. Okay, just to back up a little bit, the marketing manager role was like you were like the nucleus between the album. So if the album was to come out, I don't know, December, you're the person that kind of makes sure every department is staying on task with their time frame. You got the photo shoot happening, you got the studio stuff being complete, you got all the artwork happening. You know what I mean? You're like the main go-to person between every department, as well as with the artists themselves. So you're the go-to, you're the first line of defense, pretty much, with the project. So everyone was scouring for those jobs because, it was just a plethora of people doing that. Artists were all over the place. You had labels, you had Bad Boy, it was just a lot of people vying for the same job. So it was at that time when I just said, you know what, I have to think about what's my next move. And I started I was just looking for jobs that had the same skill set that I had learned in the music industry. You know what I mean? Like communication, dealing with clients, I don't know, keeping everybody in line on time frames, adhering to deadlines, like just looking for job descriptions that kind of had that, skill set. And so I stumbled upon, here I go stumbling again, another a position in the cable industry at Oxygen Media. Now, at the time, Oxygen was just launched with Oprah. She was part of that network. That was her foray into TV as far as like her own network. And so she was part owner of that network. And it was an independent, it wasn't owned by anyone, a women's targeted network run by women. And the title was basically affiliate sales. And I was like, what is that? I don't even know what that is, but I can do the job, like reading it. So got the interview, crushed the interview. And it was good because they were looking for someone with a different background. And I came from music. So it was totally different from cable. And so part of that interview process was me trying to just demonstrate that my skill set transitioned over to what they were looking for, dispel the rumors of the music industry that is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like it is a legit job, And so they gave me a chance pretty much. They was just like, okay. So worked at Oxygen for a number of years. And then from there, landed a job because someone else said, oh, you might be interested in a job over at MTV Network. So I was like, oh, that would be perfect. It'll marry my music industry from way back when with this newfound cable knowledge that I know, working for MTV Networks. And so I was like, okay, fine. So did MTV for another 6 or so years. And so my role there was doing marketing and sales, and it's working with the pay TV cable operators, trying to get certain channels launched on your channel lineup. So this is one side of the industry I didn't even know existed. Like going to college, going to high school, you think cable, you think of the cable guy who's just installing your service, and not knowing that it's a huge business behind it. So basically my role was to work with these cable operators, whether it's Comcast, whether it's DirecTV, and get them to launch our channels on the channel lineup. Because back then you had different channels in different areas. And some, but you could like, oh, I don't have that channel. Why don't I have that channel? So it was a sales process to get that channel on your lineup. And so that's what I did. And working the negotiations, the contracts. And then on the marketing side, it was doing marketing promotions with the local markets to let their customers know, oh, hey, we're doing the Nickelodeon, I don't know, Kids' Choice Awards. And we're having a local live event, come down. Again, trying to create a great relationship between the customer and the cable operator, because everyone hated their cable because it's always a high bill, that sort of thing. So it was more on the B2B side with a little bit of consumer for marketing, but the sales side was definitely talking to decision makers and justifying why launching logo is important to their business. So that was like really the main job. So I was there for a number of years, few restructures and reorgs. Left there and went to CBS, which was a Viacom sister company. At the time, they had already spun off, but they still were sister companies, but two separate companies. And I left because I wanted to do more negotiation. I wanted to be at the table doing the deal. I wanted to be closer. Like NTV is a large organization, so there's a lot of layers to actually be in the room to negotiate. And I was like, I want to see how the sausage is made. This is where the money is. And so I wanted to be closer to that process. CBS had an opportunity for me to actually own accounts, own the process, be able to actually negotiate the money, have ownership over that. And I was really attracted to that. So went over there for another number of years. And then with this merger that just happened in 2020, I'm back reunited with Viacom. So I'm now back with Viacom representing both brands, all of the Viacom 20 something brands, along with CBS Broadcast, CBS Sports Network, and Smithsonian. So, but doing that same type of work of sales, negotiation, doing the deals. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a small world to just go back. So that's another tip. You never know. I'm sure everyone has heard, don't burn bridges. But you really, especially in the entertainment industry, it's so small that in my case, literally, Taylor, I'm working for the same person I worked with when I was at Viacom the first time.
Wow.
And good thing we had a good relationship even when I left, because it could have went either way. A lot of people lost jobs during that merger. And she could have said, oh, Samira wasn't a good fit when I worked with her before, and I don't want her on my team again. She could have easily said that. She was in a position of influence that I think could have, it could have been a different way, and I might not be there. So it's important with all of those kind of relationships, just to not burn them. So, but yeah, that's the story of kind of how I got here through that. I mean, and during this process, a lot of mentoring and NAMIC. I don't know if you guys are familiar with NAMIC, but that's the National Association for Multi-Ethnicity and Communication. So that's went through that leadership program and part of that mentoring program as well. So yeah, that's cable. But like I said, it was an industry I didn't even know existed, or a side of the business I had no idea about. That was not presented to me at career day. So
yeah.
it was just something that just happened.
Yeah, and I want to get into, you made a lot of different transitions early in your career, and even as you progressed. And I'm curious to know, like, what were the things that helped you make those transitions? I know you said networking, but were you on a regimen with, like, I worked in New York my first 2 years at Deloitte, and so I know how the scene after work is with happy hours and things. And I'm sure I know it was an even bigger scene when you were starting out in that hot time, as far as meeting people and being able to mingle and brush shoulders with like really influential folks. So were you on a schedule where you were like, all right, I know I gotta get out and touch hands with people, at least once a week? How did you manage it?
No, you know what? And that's the part of the job that's one of my areas of growth, because I didn't do a lot of networking per se. It wasn't intentional. I'll say that. It wasn't an intentional network. I didn't have a schedule. But yes, when we had events and happy hours that might have been hosted by various trade organizations, I definitely went, just so my face was out there. I was on committees. For instance, with NAMIC, I was the secretary for a couple of years for the New York chapter. I was on the programming committee at certain things. So any trade organizations, I would try to at least stay active. Because again, it keeps your name and face out there. Again, cable industry was not a diverse area, so a lot of people remembered me, the only Black person probably. I mean, not the only, but few of us were there. And in the early days, it was a lot of travel. So I would always travel to my clients. I would travel to other industry events, and I would be the only one that looks like me in the room. So that also made me a little bit more memorable to the clients, And although my name is Samira, but everyone calls me Sam. So it's not too many Black women Sams. So that was another thing. And that kind of, stuck out. I was like, oh, it's Sam from MTV. And I kind of know that, so it was more of that type of networking as opposed to it being intentional. I did volunteer for a mentorship program, and I got paired with someone because I was the mentee, and this particular person was the GM of, I think he was the GM of Food Network at the time, and we were just paired together. And so I tried to take advantage of that as much as I could, but you know what? It wasn't an organic relationship. It felt like, we both were doing it because we got paired up. So I don't think I took full advantage of it as much as I could have if it was an organic thing. It's like, oh, we just click. And it just becomes this mentee mentor relationship. So it was a little awkward to me. And I've never done another one since. And I think maybe so now all of my relationships are more on the informal side. Like we're not just paired up because he does what I do and I could probably help him type of thing. So yeah, it's definitely not intentional, but I do make a point of going to things and being seen and that sort of thing. I think that is important. And then the one thing I want to mention on the networking side about knowing people, and if someone told me this a while ago, and it's not about who you know, I think it's about who knows you. Like I can say I know a lot of people, but do they know me? Probably not. You know what I mean? And you want someone to actually vouch for you. That's what you want. You know what I mean? I think that's important. So when people say, "Oh, it's all about who you know," I'm like, "Yeah, but who knows you too? Who's calling on your behalf and sponsoring you?" And that's what you really want someone to do. So that's just my own little tidbit on
No, yeah.
networking.
No, that's good because I agree. Who's speaking your name
Yeah.
in these rooms? Super important.
Yeah.
And you're right, the
And
world is
what are they saying?
mm,
And
yeah,
what are they saying? So
yeah.
that's the one thing. And that's like I said, it's still a growth area for me. Like I think I don't know if anyone's saying anything bad about me, but I don't know if I'm at the top of everyone's mind. Like, oh, Sam, because I may not be out there as much as I probably could be or should be. But I do think it's important, just to have some mentors and knowing people you can call. And even if they don't know that you're their mentor or that you're their mentee, you don't even have the title on it. But, there's a person you could call for like a little advice. So I do have some of those folks in my corner. So that's a good thing too.
Yes. Now, I do want to get into your actual tasks and duties that you were given in the beginning because, you did hold so many hats, wear so many hats. And it's kind of like, how did you know what to do? And what were you even doing, in the beginning when starting out from your internship with Atlantic? Was it just, little things as far as like, whatever needs to be done? Like, were you just kind of making copies or printing out stuff, transcribing notes or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
Okay. So my intern duties at Atlantic, I was in the urban music department working with um, Sydney Margison, who is still there. He is the SVP of publicity at Atlantic Records, and we're still in touch. Hey, Sydney. So he was my first boss. He's a Howard grad. And we were in publicity. And so the types of things I was doing was literally, and again, this is pre-digital age. Like we weren't all on email that much. So I was cutting out press clippings, like Brandy's on the cover of 17. So I would cut that out, tape it, make color copies, distribute it to everyone on various floors in the building so that they knew what our team was doing. It was more of letting people know what you've accomplished. We will put together press books. So after, I don't even know how long, maybe a few months of press, you put a whole press kit together kind of thing, and you would send it to management. So that management knew, look at all this press we're garnering. I would help set up interviews if let's say I'm working Brandy, for instance. We would do phone interviews. You would do a press day. So our VP would set up a press day, which is having a day full of interviews for the artists. Set them up in a conference room, and you knock out a bunch of phoners. So I would help schedule that phoner, make sure everyone's kind of set up on what they need to do. When it was time to do photo shoots for press, help pick them hair and makeup artists. Some of that was fun, call these agencies who rep photographers, stylists, makeup artists, hairstylists, and say, hey, send me all your portfolios. And we would go through, see who we think would be great. So it was that sort of thing. It was all about the image in the press department. We were responsible for garnering print and TV. So when they were performing on, let's say, The Late Show or back, I don't know, was Arsenio Hall on back then? I don't know. But whatever it was TV shows along with award shows, Soul Train Awards, Grammys, all of that stuff. So you kind of help facilitate those calls. I would do travel. I would work with the travel agent, book travel, hotel for the artist. Um, so yeah, it was a lot of hands-on stuff. I mean, it was photocopies were part of it because you had to disseminate information. Um, but it was all about securing interviews and listening to my VP. And basically, what publicity is, which kind of set me up with the skill set for sales. That I know people hate to use the word sales, but it was about pitching. We had to pitch to 17 magazine or InStyle magazine. Why should they do this article on Brandy or Little Kim? You know what I mean? You're talking about, and then you got the music publications and things like that. So it was more of a sales pitch, which is what I did when I got my interview at Oxygen. They were like, how are you going to transition what you're doing in music to what we need? And I was like, it's still pitching. It's a different product, but the skill set is the same. And literally on the spot, I remember at Oxygen, the hiring manager said, pitch me for the cover of Glamour. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So I just thought of stuff. I can't remember what I said, but I said something that obviously got me the job. But you know what I mean? It was, again, that's really where I guess the building blocks of like selling, because you're pitching something. You got to tell me why. And you're talking to editors, you're talking to writers and all of these folks and trying to justify why they should do something for you. And so the other thing with press and publicity is that it's free. You don't really pay for it. Like they really got to want it and hope that it helps their audience and all that sort of stuff. So it was a lot of that. I don't call it grunt work. But you know, like I said, I was making copies. I was cutting out press kits and circulating things and putting press kits together. So that was like if a magazine, I remember my boss, Chrissy, she would say, oh, we need to get 20 press kits sent out. So we have mailing lists. You know how you have your contacts? Mm-hmm. You have a mailing list and you put together a press kit that includes the bio, the headshot that you picked, the 8x10, and a sample of the music. And so we would send that out in nice little folders, and you send that across the country. Again, trying to get people to bite and do a story on it. So that's the type of things. And so we also hired people to write bios. You set that up. So it was, it was interesting. It was good learning. I liked it. And then from there, more of the marketing. When I got the job as marketing, I started out as kind of like an assistant role. So I was answering phones, doing that sort of thing, keeping the boss on task. Like, hey, don't forget you got to approve this, making sure approvals were happening when they needed to. So you kind of keep the train.
That's pretty cool. Because that was your internship.
Mm-hmm.
That was what you were doing. So it's kind of like your first.
That was like my first. Yeah, like in the media industry. Because I mean, like I said, I was doing a lot in college because I was trying to get out, but I also had another job. So this wasn't my job. This was just my internship. I was working at a hotel in reservations, checking in people in New York City.
Oh, wow.
As like a front desk clerk.
Oh, I'm sure you have like so many stories from that too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I was like, oh yeah, I was doing a lot.
Yeah. So your transition, because that was an internship, right?
That was an internship, yes.
So when your first full-time role was, you said
it was still at Atlantic, but in the marketing department. So literally the publicity department and marketing department literally were right next door, kind of not even next door. We were all on the same floor. And we joke about this when we were working there because we were on the 25th floor. That was like the urban music floor, basically all Black people. Like it was crazy. And I don't think I noticed it as much while I was there. But like now I'm like, wait, we were segregated on this 25th floor.
Wow.
All of us were there. So anyway, it was like Black press over here, and then it was like urban marketing over here. We had urban promotions down the hall, rap promotions, but we all were on the same floor.
Did that kind of cloud your view of corporate America? Because all you were kind of seeing, at least in that little space, was, people that look like you, people that were listening to stuff you're listening to,
Yeah, I don't think I realized it, but yes. I mean, it was a buffer, like, because I was early in my career. So I just didn't recognize the things that were happening. Like I said, I didn't even really realize, like, oh my gosh, it's only us on this floor, because I just didn't think that way. Whereas when I talked to some of my other colleagues who like went to HBCUs, they're like, that's the first thing I noticed. I was already aware that this already looks crazy. And I'm like, really? I guess it does. You know what I mean? I didn't realize it, but it totally was. We all were on the 25th floor. They all looked like me. Yes, we all were in common. You can come in as yourself, right? We listened to the same music. So yeah, I think you're right. It was a little bit of a cloudiness that really changed when I got into cable, because that same environment, went with me to Def Jam after Atlantic and Ruff Ryders. They all looked like me. We all had a lot of stuff in common. Like it was fine. But yes, when I went into cable at Oxygen, it was a totally different environment. It was all female, which was a kind of a good thing, but they were also people that were white. They didn't look like me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a different dynamic altogether. It was, yeah, it was totally different. The music was a little more heavily male, but they were black guys, and you already have a little camaraderie with people that look like you. But it was definitely different when I got to Oxygen. I was just like, okay, and it was, and at the same time, although it was different than music industry, it still wasn't corporate because they were an independent network. So they were still doing things, that if you're a public company that you still, it's kind of looked as, we had beer on Fridays and vodka parties and all this crazy stuff that you wouldn't really do at a public company. So, when you're independent, you can kind of, in private, you kind of do what you want to do. So it still wasn't as corporate as what I know now. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I have one more question about the beginning. So when you were making your transition, again, saying that it was really comfortable, really natural, it seemed like, to fit into the environment. How did you do that translation of your duties and, your responsibilities to like a new environment, Oxygen? Were you ever kind of worried that they wouldn't understand, all the wealth of your experiences? Was that ever something that you were like, okay, how can I translate this to this new industry, new function?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I went in with, I mean, I did go in knowing I had to prove to them that the skills translated. They just had to see it. I don't think, that's actually good. I just felt like I had to prove myself, you know what I mean? A little bit, just because it was music more so, that I think people don't even realize or think that that's a real job. So I think it was just more of me saying, no, I know how to speak to people. I know how to present myself and present materials and items and things like that. So, and they started off with small promotions of like selling in things. And so I think I thought it was going to be harder than it was. And once I was able to do it and I found success, I was like, oh, this is what this is? Oh, this ain't nothing. We got this. It was that sort of thing. So, like I said, I was on a smaller team, so it gave me a little bit of confidence because I saw the success come out of what I was doing. So I think that gave me a little bit more confidence. My chest was poked out a little bit, like, okay, we can do this. So I think it was more self-induced pressure. I don't think they didn't give me any pressure. I don't think. I just felt like I needed to, because I was like, all right, you're coming from, Def Jam and hip hop. They don't even know what that is, but they gave you a shot, obviously. So I recognize when people, I'm like, okay, well, they hired me for a reason, because they think I can do the job and I know I can do the job. So let's just do it. So I think having some level of confidence is important. I mean, even if you don't know everything and it's a lot to learn, like I said, this was a totally new industry. I had to learn it. I didn't even know, like I said, I thought cable was the installation guy. So I just had to say, oh, okay, that's what we're selling. Oh, that's the goal. And for me, understanding the why helps me. So when I have a team, I try to give them all the context. Like, this is how we fit into the food chain of the organization and why our job matters. So I think when I was at Oxygen, I understood the message early on. It was like, hey, we're a small network. We're trying to get distribution on these cable channel lineups. Our biggest competition is Lifetime, because that was a women's targeted network as well. So how do we do that? And so that was it. And it was like getting in front of whoever you could to convey the value of your product. And so what we hinged things on was like, okay, we didn't have any hit programming on Oxygen. Like the biggest thing we had was like, oh, Oprah's backing us. And
the early
we
days.
didn't really have, yeah, it was early.
Bad
We didn't
Girls
have
Club, I know.
right, exactly, you know, exactly. Bad Girls Club, you had Oprah, but we didn't have the Lifetime movies. We didn't have all that stuff. So the other thing we had to tap into was research. We did have a wealth of research about how the woman is the decision maker in the home. So she pays your cable bill, and she pays for the high speed internet. And she needs the high speed internet because she's online shopping and she's helping the kids with homework Googling. So those are things that is needed. And so since she's making a decision, you need to talk to her because she's going to be the one that gets the highest speed internet from your cable company. Like if all of that. So that was the hook of the power of the woman in the household and making these decisions and why you need to tap into her. So it was just all of that. So that was the hook.
Yes, I was going to say, it seems like if I can venture to say your passion or like, you know, what really was your thing is the selling piece. And it kind of seems like a common thread from even your beginnings in music till now, like the selling piece. And even with communications, you know, your degree, how to sell. Were you then, and once you came into Oxygen, it almost seems like that's when you were like, all right, this is kind of what I want to do. Like, I like this, I can do this.
Yeah.
So once you had that job and you started doing well, and of course you've ascended into different roles kind of along the same path, where you like, okay, I'm about to map it out because I like this. So I want to stay here as far as like in this, I guess, vertical, if you will, and just like work my way up. Did you have that conversation with yourself, or was it just like, okay, this is cool, let's just, you know, bop around? I always ask this question because I'm just curious.
Taylor, I am so unorganized and I'm not that. You know what? And I hate to sound like this, but I don't plan that well. Like not with my career. Like I said, it started with the internship. We just stumbled upon it. It was like, we just applied. Everything kind of just was like, oh, that just happened. And I don't want to make it sound like it's that easy, but it was like, stuff kind of landed there, and I was in a position where I was like, oh, I actually enjoy it. So yeah, you excel. I didn't hate it. You know, I didn't want to say, oh, let me switch careers. I actually did enjoy it. So it just kind of went from there. And like when you do something that you like and you get recognized for it, why wouldn't you keep going? You know what I mean? It was kind of one of those things. It wasn't necessarily a path. The one thing that was a conscious decision was when I left Viacom to go to CBS. And I knew I wanted to do deals and just be closer to that process. So I specifically was looking for opportunities that said, hey, you're going to be in the room negotiating this $1 billion deal. That's where I want to be. So that was kind of, I guess, the intentional piece of it. It was like, you know what? I actually like it. I want to do it. The cable industry is very warm, I guess. Like they have a lot of opportunities and trade organizations and things like that. And this saying that like once you're in cable, you never leave. You know, everyone just moves around and people know you. But I actually enjoy the work, enjoy the industry. I always worked around great people. Yeah. And that's a big thing for me. Like we're spending hours and hours with you guys, you know, in a day. You want to like the people you're working with. So I genuinely did like at each of my jobs. I enjoyed working with the people. So yeah, I wish I could say I had a full out plan, but no, I didn't really have a plan, but I did like the selling piece. I just like interacting with people, interacting with clients. And then early on, I stopped saying that I was in the sales department because the connotation of sales is like used car salesman, commission-based, hitting quotas. You know, you have all of this connotation of what sales means. And it never was that for me because that wasn't the type of selling I was doing, but it just fell under that umbrella. And I used to tell people, oh, I do. Sometimes I would say sales, but I would always put in the marketing side, sales and marketing, instead of like just sales. And so even nowadays, like even for someone looking for jobs, do not shy away from anything that says sales, because it's the skill set that you're learning, talking with people, pitching, negotiating, listening, understanding their needs. All of those skill sets are invaluable. So I would encourage people. I mean, I'm not going to say go and take a quota job and make all these 20 cold calls for some insurance company, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid of when you see something that says sales coordinator or just the word sales, because the skill set is a foundation for any industry of any job. You have to be able to present, right? You need to be able to speak. You need to be able to pitch. You need to be able to convince people why. Why would I do that? And that kind of helps build your confidence. That helps you learn things. So that would be another little tidbit. Don't shy away from the word sales, because it's helpful.
Okay. And it definitely, of course, in your career, you've been reaping the benefits. So
yeah, but I think you can transit. Like I said, it's the skill set that can go to any industry.
Right.
You can switch out and be a PR person. You can be, you can do anything with a sales background.
Right.
That's what I'll say. So, yeah. Or at least pick up that skill set somewhere. But it's usually early in your career where you can get it and really get comfortable with all of those skills.
So I have a question. As you transition from the environment, that, everyone was, you're again going back to the comfortability piece, and now you've been in an environment where, you were kind of one of the few, if not the only, and you've been ascending, in that environment. I'm sure there had to be some, maybe there weren't some instances that were difficult to navigate with just you being a Black woman, any uncomfortable moments. And if so, how did you deal with that? How did you move past that, have those conversations, tough moments with colleagues to kind of resolve or like at least confront some issues if there were any?
Yeah, there were. It's one particular during my time at Oxygen. Like I said, that was full of women, full of white women. And I really honestly felt that I was passed up for a promotion. I think is when I first recognized, like, are you serious right now? So, like I said, I was kind of new. Well, not even kind of. I was new to the industry, right? I didn't know. But I was about my second year at Oxygen. So I had already had some successes under my belt. Like my other colleagues, I surpassed, let's just say, certain promotions. Let's say you're supposed to sell in, 30 promotions a year. I sold in 40. You know what I mean? So I already knew I was excelling, and I felt I deserved a promotion. And so, and at that time, I don't think I had had conversations about it. And this is another tip. I've never vocalized that, hey, I want a promotion. I thought, you can see how well I'm doing. You should give me the promotion. Don't you see all that I'm doing? Like, why is this even an issue? Like, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
No. So, so the context is no, I didn't have the conversation, but again, I felt like I deserved it. You see all the work I'm doing. I should just get it. You should reward me for my hard work. Well, that definitely was not the case. In this particular instance, one of our managers, she was going on maternity leave, I think. And so anyway, my colleague got the promotion. And I was just like, really? Like, why did you give it to her? I was already doing way better than she was, working harder, and she was another white woman. So I felt that promotion should have been mine. But they gave it to her. And I thought that they gave it to her because she was another white woman. Like, this other woman wanted to go on maternity leave and leave the department, with someone she was comfortable with. And so that was just how I took it. And I was so pissed. Like, I was so mad. And even other folks saw it. They were like, how she did it? Like, she doesn't even do half the stuff. So it was a little bit obvious. So I didn't really confront it. It was just an internal drive of like, I got to get out of here. Like, this this isn't cool, And so that was kind of how I handle it. Again, I was younger. I would not have done that now. And again, I don't know what that other person, I don't know if she's had conversations about being promoted. She might have known to do that before me. Like, I don't know what her strategy was or how it worked, but the way it looked to me, how I felt was like I was overlooked for deserving promotion. So you know what? You need to find another place to be, because if you weren't recognized then, you're not going to be recognized the next time around. At least that's how I took it. So I just used that to just find another job. Like, I was there, but I was just looking for a job. Like, okay, this is my first entry into cable. All right, Oxygen, nice stepping stone. Now that I know what this industry and what this particular position does, I actually like it. Clearly, I've been excelling because I started out as a manager. I think I started out as a manager. Then, yes, and then I did get promoted once to senior manager. So I was looking for that senior manager to director.
Gotcha.
Next step is what I was looking for. And I didn't get that there. So I said, all right, now I know. So that was around the time that I left and went over to Viacom.
Wow. That's a story. That's a definitely a crux, I feel like, being Black in corporate America.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's hard to find the answers when you feel like you're throwing up all like your best. And it's just
but what I will say, and that like I said, I didn't do this before, is advocate for yourself. Your work is not enough.
Gotcha.
Doing the work is not enough. Okay, do the work, tell people what you're trying to do. That goes back to that networking a little bit. It's like, hey, I enjoy it. Self-advocate for yourself, and just, well, that's redundant. But you know what I mean? Tell people what you want to do, what path, what you enjoy about your job. You have to talk about yourself, because again, that makes you a little bit more memorable in somebody else's head. It's like, oh, I was just talking to her about that, and she said blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So,
and you said
I've learned.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's probably what you're going to get into. I was going to say, you said you would handle it differently now.
Yeah.
Like, what would you have done if it was like now and that situation came about?
If it was now and I felt like I needed a promotion, I would start planting the seed, letting people know I'm ready to take on the next thing, just volunteer for additional responsibility, highlight my successes more often. I think during my career, I had the opportunity to do several leadership trainings, various things. And part of those trainings are, you take self-awareness tests. So you find out your leadership style, what kind of person you are, what motivates you, all this kind of stuff. And so during one of those, I realized, or at least what came out of a testing session, is that I'm the type of person that just does the work. And it seems that it comes to me easily. So people don't understand how much hard work I'm doing in the background, because they just see the product. So they don't see the process. And so I have to be intentional about the process. Like, yeah, you guys see it when it's all wrapped up in a nice bow, but you don't know that I've negotiated 20 hours with this guy to get him to that point. So I've learned that I have to tell people about that 20 hours. And say, I can't make it seem like it's just so easy, even though they think it is. And it's like, oh yeah, have Sam do it. Next thing you know, Sam does it and it's done. And so you don't really get that recognition. And so I have to say, after, and this is intentional, and I feel like it's work, but I have to really be conscious and say, hey, after back and forth with blah, 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 we were able to do this. I have to actually say that. And that goes back to people understanding the process and be like, wow, yeah, she does deserve this. Look how hard she worked. But if you don't say that, they don't know how hard you work. They just saw the product, the end result. So now I would plant seeds. I would just say how hard I'm letting people know, like, I'm doing stuff. It may seem like it's nothing happening because but it's a lot of work that goes into it. So I think I would let people know what I want to do, tell them. And so that's how I would handle it differently now than I did before. Before I was just angry and was like, I got to get out of here because you guys don't see how great I am and how hard I'm working. So I'm leaving.
Yeah.
That's not the best way. The best way to do it. But yeah, I think that's kind of how you got to work with corporate America. And also, you got to be, it's definitely And the other thing is take the personal out of it. Some of it is personal, but if you feel like things are personal, I like to address it head on. Or, if someone is trying to, I can't even give an example. Like if you just feel like something isn't right or they're giving you some kind of BS answer, I kind of probe a little bit. What exactly do you mean by that? Help me understand what you're looking for. If this isn't what you need, can you give me an example? Just so you can kind of unravel and peel back the onion a little bit and just understand what the issue is and making sure that it's not a racial issue, because sometimes it is. And if you keep asking the right question, you're going to get to it, but it's definitely interesting. And corporate isn't for everyone. That's another thing I've learned. Like, it is definitely not for the faint of heart, because it is a lot of politics. And you got to know how to navigate, and you just got to know the subtle signs. Like, I get a lot of friends, my nieces, they're around your age. And so one of them, she lives in LA, and she's like, "Oh, Aunt Sam, my job said this to me, that they're not promoting anybody because of budgets." I was like, BS. Like, no, that's not right. Find out. And then, or, that'll be one issue, but they're like, "But I'm super cool with the supervisor. We go out for drinks, we do this and that." I'm like, no. If they were your friend or any kind of advocate, and they see something happening, like you're working hard and not getting recognized for it, that person would then talk to your boss and make sure that you're getting what you deserve. I said, so don't get, just don't have your judgment clouded because you're friends with someone at the senior level. And it goes back to, like, do they know you? If they're not going to fight for you, why are you hanging out with them? If they know that you want to climb the ladder, and they're not doing that for you, cut them off or keep them in a certain zone. Don't expect them to do anything for you. You know what I mean? So I try to tell people, I'm an open book, call me, because sometimes they say stuff and it's not true. You know what I mean? They're just, they're taking advantage of you because they think that you need the job, cheap labor, you fill in a quota, you're the token, like all kind of stuff can be the real motivator. But you just got to be able to recognize some of those behaviors, I guess. And you don't really know it until you're in it, which is weird. So,
yeah. And I guess on the whole, as far as your change, your transformation, how have you changed in your idea of being in corporate America, your idea of, being an executive? How has that changed from the beginning to now? Let's not go all the way back, but maybe like from when you finally were like, cool, I like this at Oxygen, to now in a VP role. How have you changed, and what are maybe some behaviors you picked up so that you can, navigate better? Things maybe you wish you had known before you started on your ascension.
I think I might start when I was from the Viacom side. I think it was because I was a director. I was at a director level for a long time. And in my head, I was just like, I was like, I got to get out of this director, because it was just kind of middle management. And to me, VP felt like, woo, you got you a little something now. Like, you know what I mean? So I was like, how do I make that transition? And so it was more of, like I said before, just telling people what I was doing all the time. Like, what were my accomplishments, whoever will listen. I don't know, getting friends in other departments and just trying to just spread the network out a little bit laterally instead of just this vertical way of doing things. Like, oh, my boss has to know that I'm doing great things, but it's not just him, because you work with, or her, you work with across other departments. So who has the ear of your boss? Oh, her. Okay, let me, talk to them and get in their good graces and work with them so they see how well I am. Go on this side too. What I used to call the flanking strategy, like flank everybody, like, because you just never know who's going to say what. And your boss works so close with you, they don't even know how well you're doing. They just know you're getting the work done. They don't know, like I said, back to, oh, I had to work with ops and strategy to even get this answer. Like, they just don't know all that background. So I think part of it was just understanding structure of how your particular organization is structured. And looking around, it's like, okay, if people are getting promoted, how are they getting promoted? Ask the question, hey, what do I have to do to get promoted? What skill set do I need to check off to be considered for the next level? I remember having a direct conversation with my boss when I was at Viacom, and I was going from senior, manager to director. And this is the one thing I like about her, she was very direct. She said, you need to do blah, blah, blah. She gave me 3 tasks. I need you to be able to do these things before you can even be considered. And I did them and I got promoted. And that's one of the things I actually love about her. She was a supervisor who was good to her word. She knew what was in her control. She was clear, honest. We were transparent, and she made good on her word. And that's kind of how I like to lead. If I know, look, you have to have these types of skills, I try to tell my team, this is what we need you to do. Take the initiative, close out these deals, just be able to be proactive, not only reactive, think about the industry, read some trades, do things like that. So I think understanding your respective company structure, how they operate, just look around, be aware, take notes. It's like, okay, that happened over here. I wonder what she said to do that. And sometimes my boss was oblivious about what was happening because, if you're in middle management a little bit, what your colleagues and your peers, like, you're like, oh, she can't promote it over here. Or this was, the boss sometimes doesn't even know. And I remember talking to one of my bosses at one time. I was like, hey, did you realize that everyone in this department has gotten promoted except for me? I said, so movement happens. Yeah. So don't tell me people aren't getting promoted. That's not true. And then you're like, yeah. So what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff. It's like, no, I noticed this one and this one and that one. And they may have been at a lower position than I was. Like, let's say they went from coordinator to manager. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. The point is movement happens. So whoever wants it to happen, it can happen. Don't tell me, oh, we only do promotions in the summer and in the winter. No. That's not true because it's happened here. So with corporate, if they want, they can do whatever they want to do. There are no rules, if you ask me. There are no rules. I mean, they try to say that there are rules, but no, it's exceptions all the time. And the question is, will they make the exception for you? Maybe not, but know that it's always room for negotiation. Always. And that's one of my other little things I learned from the music industry. And I'm sure people have heard this before. It's not what you deserve, it's what you negotiate. That's it. Because you look at someone like, how did they get that? She probably just asked for it.
Right.
Why did you just ask for it? They might not have done anything crazy. If closed mouth doesn't get fed, you know what I mean? So I think that's definitely a new thing for me, is actually speaking, being a little bit more, not even a little bit, just being more vocal about what it is I want or what I want to do. It's like, oh, I want to work on that project. And, and when you ask, you rarely get turned down. I mean, they may say, oh, well, let us figure something. They may push you off a little bit, but you rarely get a direct no. Because when someone actually tells you no, then all right, how I got to move. Either I'm going to stay here or I'm not. You know what I mean? But sometimes they try to give you a little rope, but you always got to try to have some kind of follow-up or deadline. All right, we can revisit this in 3 months. Never leave the conversation open-ended. So when should I come back and we can talk about this again? Make them commit to you some sort of timeline, some sort of revisit, so it stays top of mind and you keep it top of mind. You know what I mean? But when you keep getting the Heisman, then that tells you how you need to move. You know what I mean? You can make the decisions for you, but for yourself, but you definitely have to ask the questions, read the signs. It's not always clear. That's the whole game with corporate. It's not always crystal clear on what they're doing. It's always like, okay, that doesn't sound right. Let me ask for it. It's always something. It's a game. And you either want to play it or you don't. And a lot of people don't want to play it, and neither do they know how to play it. Because it is exhausting.
Yes. I want to piggyback on that real quick. And I know we're coming up on time, so it'll be my last couple of questions. But this one, I want to ask, because you seem very authentic, very like, comfortable, and it doesn't seem like you're two different people. I feel like you're probably the same person when you're on a work call as you are speaking to us right now on this podcast. And I want to get into a little bit of that. Have you always been this way? And did you ever think about, having kind of, two personalities, one for work and then another person you turn on after?
Yeah, you know what? I do have two personalities. I mean, with corporate, you have to be bicultural. So, and it's like, this is my personality. Like, this is how I am at work. But where the difference does come in a little bit is with my clients. That's where I turn on something different. My clients are all white, middle-aged men. Have nothing in common, like zero in common. And so I am intentional on like, okay, let's go meet for dinner. What are we going to, in my head, right? This is this whole role play. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to spend 2 hours with this person. Of course, it's business, but you also, you got to ask your personal questions and be fake, like you're really interested and you're not. So that's where it comes on. You know what I mean? Where I say it's exhausting because that piece of it is not the natural me. You know what I mean? I'm asking about whatever it is, or they're telling me about fishing. I don't know anything about fishing, but I do know how to hold a conversation, and I know how to ask, oh, really? Okay. Oh, I know people who have done that. Have you ever fished on this lake? Oh my gosh, I heard it's so hard. But you go into this whole routine. So yeah, that part of it, client facing, that is where, yeah, the other side kind of just comes out, or the actor, the unauthentic self might come across, is with my clients. At work, I feel like I can be myself. You know what I mean? Like I said, I work with a nice team, Viacom, we're a little bit diverse, like all kind of stuff. I don't feel like I'm on, but when I'm with clients in certain settings and meetings, I do feel like, all right, here we go, showtime.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting here like, you seem so comfortable. Is there another side so that it does come out?
Yeah. And then when you get to know your clients, like we work in pay TV, a lot of these people have been there for years, like you've known them for years. So you do get a little bit more comfortable over time. So, and you actually are interested in what happened the last time you saw them, or
Gotcha.
I might have told them something was happening, or last time they saw me, maybe I was pregnant. They're like, oh my gosh, your daughter's 8 already. I'm like, I know, you know what I mean? So you do genuinely, connect with the clients, but there are times when they're, new people that I haven't met and I'm seeing for the first time. So yeah, you got to put something else on, and go from there. I mean, I don't look at it as like being phony because it's still me, but I am having conversations that I wouldn't have with my friends. You know what I mean? Topics and things like that. So is definitely a bit different, but like it's mostly when it's external client facing versus literally going into the office.
Gotcha. Now, I want to conclude with some questions about legacy and just what you hope your legacy is becoming, what you're excited about, or maybe things you want to add to the legacy or your legacy in the corporate space, or just in general as a Black woman professional. Things, or maybe quotes or mottos you live by, some things that are identifiable by your brand, that people remember you.
Yeah, I mean, legacy is such a strong word. That's like, oh my gosh.
I know.
But no, I mean, just in corporate, I mean, I do want people to always know, whoever comes in contact with me, and it goes back to what you said about just being authentic, like, and fair and reasonable. I think that's usually this came up in one of my leadership style things again. It's like, oh, you're very fair and transparent. Like, that's the feedback I get. I try to treat people equally. I'm somewhat of a driver. Like, I like results. I realize what motivates me is a little bit of recognition. Like, I don't need whole lot of accolades. I just need somebody like, oh yeah, that was good. Like, you know, I'm one of those type of people. But yeah, just be yourself, be confident, be your best advocate for yourself. Like, no one knows you better than you, and everybody needs to hear it. I hate when I hear that people are being taken advantage of. Like I said, it's like, what? They said what? Like, I just get so riled up. And I'm just like, no, you can't do that. It's like, I get so pissed. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I can't be more mad than you are. Like, you're the one still there. And I only can tell you what you should do and what you should tolerate and how it works. But if you're still going to take it, don't, like, I learned early, like, stop fighting somebody else's battles. They need to fight for them if they really, truly want to get out of that situation. And that goes across career, personal, anything. You know what I mean? Like, you need to, use your voice. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me is, like, use your voice. It's powerful. It's yours. It's, be confident about it. Like I said, closed mouth doesn't get fed. It's not what you deserve. It's what you negotiate. Like, I kind of live by those. It's like, I have to ask, what's the worst? And sometimes it's uncomfortable. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard this, but you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. You're not changing. Like, I remember having conversations. I'm like, oh, I don't want to have this. Like, but I always would go back to myself and say, you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't. So figure it out, get over it, and just do it, because you're going to be kicking yourself. I remember going in with my boss, even when I was at CBS, every year. So CBS didn't have a formal review process. So it was no real accountability on how well I'm performing. We didn't really have individual goals. So it was just so weird. And I remember every year, at the end of the year, I would come in with my accomplishments, because I would keep them throughout the year. I did this, I brought in this amount of revenue. Like, I would have all my talking points, again, fighting for why I need to be moved up to the next position. And it got to a point where he's like, I don't need to even see that. Like, I know what you're doing. I said, okay, so then what are you doing then? Like, I don't understand. I'm like, okay, if you're telling me I have all the skills already, why am I not there? And that's when you get the other side of that corporate conversation of timing, things may be happening. You kind of get that wishy-washy stuff that's like, whatever. And then you still say, okay, well, we'll touch base in 6 months. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm looking for another job. I always kept my resume updated. My friends were like, you looking again? I'm like, you just never know. Like, they don't love me. There's no loyalty. It is no loyalty here. So I just want to be ready. Like,
yeah.
So if something comes along, and then even if it doesn't, you're still getting practice. You're interviewing. I'm trying to see what's the market rate for what I do. How much is this salary? Oh, okay, I'll take that call. You know what I mean? It helps you, even if you're not looking to go right away. It's never. This is another thing I used to tell my nieces. I'm like, I never turn down an interview. I never do. Like, someone calls me out the blue on LinkedIn. Oh, I found you. Okay, let's chat. So no harm in talking. You're not committing yourself to anything, but it does give you a chance to ask questions. What are employers looking for? How much they're paying for that specific role? You get a lot of information. So I always take interviews, phone calls. I take it all. And my friends are like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, why not? Or someone is like, I'm not really looking for such and such. Call me. Call them back. Why wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. I am always like baffled by people like, oh, I'm going to pull my name out of the running. What? Why would you do that? That makes absolutely no sense. Like, you didn't even get anywhere yet. Why would you? So anyway, that's another thing. I try to keep all my stuff updated as best as I can, and take all calls and that stuff. But yeah, I don't know if this answers your legacy question. I know I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, that was good. I really enjoyed touching on
I think people just need to use your voice. Just use it and let people know what's going on and anything. You know, they always say, you know, if you find something you enjoy, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
So and I actually enjoy people. So they're part of it. And I enjoy the people I'm working with, the products, the travel. We get to do some fun stuff. So yeah, kind of enjoying the place that I'm in right now. But don't get it twisted. Somebody called me for an interview. I'm going to have that conversation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate all the gems you dropped in this conversation. I think that for sure people are going to come away with lots of things. I know I definitely
I
have.
hope so. I hope I was helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, no, seriously.
It
You
kind
have,
of felt like I was all over the place. But I mean, in between all of my disorganized thoughts,
no, you have like such a,
hopefully something was helpful.
yeah, you have such a long career to summarize in this episode. So, it only makes sense that we cover it all, which, it was in different,
Right.
you know, avenues that you work.
Yeah.
So it's all good. I appreciated hearing all of the different facets that you've had experience in. So that
Okay.
was
Well, it was good speaking with you, and listening to all of the transitions that I've had. But yes, I do think the baseline is the skill sets. They all went across the board. So I think that's the one thing, and being able to convey that, whether or not you pivot to a different industry or things like that, and just sometimes you got to be in it to win it. You just never know.
mm-hmm.
Never know.
Well,
So
I
yeah.
appreciate you.
No,
And
thank
so
you.
for you taking this time to speak with us. Thank you, listeners, for sticking with us throughout the episode.
I know. Thank you, guys. Hope you learned something.
We hope you enjoyed as much as I did speaking and listening. So, yeah, I think we can
All right.
conclude.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
will